Hello, welcome to the start of the second quarter 2025. Quite a start it has been. I wanted to give you an update, specifically targeting those of you who are still out there in the workforce. I did another video here. Specifically to folks who are retired. So I wanted to give you guys the same kind of overview and a little bit different of a message as well. This one's going to be a little bit more in depth than what my last video was, but I wanted to get this out there since we've had a pretty turbulent 2 weeks in the market. So with the tariff announcement and even the back and forth that we've seen here in the last couple of months, we've definitely entered into a new way of utilizing this economic tool that has been around for a long time. Tariffs are nothing new, but of course are being used in a different way. So I'm going to try and separate some of the facts from some of the opinion out there, even though of course this is an opinion as well. So keep that in mind. So what the president's trying to do on the surface makes sense. Of course, there is the political component, which I'm going to try and walk the middle line as much as I can. Aligning our trade with those of countries around the world is not an easy task. Of course, we would like to have more goods and services made here and sold here, and also sold, all around the world as well. And on the surface, again, that sounds like a good thing, not necessarily all that easy to do when you have, certainly imbalances in the wealth of our country, the consumption of our country, and the sheer size of our country as well. Now, one word that's come up here most recently is protectionism, and that means that you are going to benefit, yourself to potentially the detriment of others. And what I would say and what we have observed is that certainly other countries, do, take up this kind of activity as well with the some of the trade barriers that exist out there. In an ideal world, there would be what they would call completely free trade, but that's just not a reality, of the situation. We do carry trade imbalances with other countries, and on the surface, that they're not necessarily something that is bad. But when you have a trade imbalance with another country, that definitely is less advantageous to you than it is, for that country that you have the imbalance, with. So again, what we're trying to do is right that ship if we can, negotiate in good faith if possible to have countries come to the negotiating table. Seems like that's working. A lot of countries this past week have made the decision to come and have negotiations. Some have not. Obviously China's been in the news with the retaliation of their tariffs, and obviously retaliatory tariffs don't help either party. As you just keep on, increasing the tariff rate, both countries, certainly do suffer. Now, we're certainly not looking at having, all of those goods and services that, are produced overseas come back here. I don't think the United States is going to be the leader in making T-shirts or jeans or other textiles. But of course, there is a case to be made for more critical, goods and services to be produced here. Weapons, medicine, energy, those types of things. If we can manufacture them here and not be victim of shortages or other countries, protectionist activities. COVID was a great example of that, of course, right? We saw that a lot of our medicine comes from China, and a lot of our personal protection equipment, is made there as well. And we were not able to source, as much of that once, the pandemic began. And of course, weapons, we want to also be able to make sure that we can get our hands on those, should something happen. You never want your enemies, making your weapons for you. That's generally not a good idea. Um, certainly selling some of our goods into other countries or more of our goods. Are we going to be selling, pickups and SUVs around the world? Probably not. But we are a big, agricultural producer, grain and meat, right? We can certainly sell more of those products into other countries if the trade barriers that currently exist, are reduced or eliminated. So, not to say that this is going to have the complete desired outcome, but there definitely are some reasons for this path, if you will, to be undertaken. Of course, we saw some of the trade numbers or the tariff numbers come out, and the calculation for them was not necessarily all that accurate. Probably a bit of showmanship there for those high numbers. I did some additional digging to see that our tariffs that we generally impose on other countries come in at about a rate of 2.7%. So we don't really impose very many or very high tariffs to sell our goods, into other countries. The average out there for other countries selling their goods into our market is anywhere between 5 and 7%. So certainly not as high as what was originally advertised, but definitely much larger, if you will, than what our tariff rates that we impose are. So there certainly is a case to be made for some negotiation on tariffs, and this is not a new thing. The president has been talking about this for the better part of 40 years, saying that these imbalances in trade and using tariffs as a tool to address that is something that he is interested in. The path, the volatility, the back and forth, right? We have seen, it's part of the negotiation. It can be chaotic, it can be hectic, and obviously we're seeing, lots of opinions on both sides, as a result of that. For those who believe that this, is being done to help, our economy long term, it does seem like that is the path that we are on, but time will tell. Of course, nobody wants the suffering or the pain that has to come along with that, and the negotiating tactic of come in with a big stick and start kind of whacking people over the head to wake them up and get them to come to the table. That's certainly something that we've seen here as well. So whether countries decide to come to the table and negotiate, or whether they decide to retaliate, will definitely increase, or I should say, decide the outcome of this situation that we're going through. We've seen some countries, in the EU as well as China, take the retaliation path, which obviously shows us that, politics and economics don't always align with what, is going on. Certainly, we know that there are, countries and administrations that don't agree or align with what, we have currently here in the United States. So, one of the other reasons for this that's been floated out there is to address our debt. We have about $9 trillion of debt that is going to be refinanced this year. Having a lower interest rate on that debt would certainly save us money, since now the interest on the debt occupies a pretty large amount of our federal budget every year. Being able to refinance that at a lower rate would be advantageous. Well, how do you get there? A recession would get us there. The Fed would likely cut interest rates if we were seeing recessionary signs. So there actually may be a plan to this short-term pain and even a temporary short recession with the ability for a more positive outcome. We'll see whether that happens or not. Famous quote in the government: "Never let a crisis go to waste." So we'll see what happens there, but that might be another positive potential outcome as a result of this. And on that note, we all know that the debt and deficits are a problem. We've seen them rise quite dramatically since the financial crisis back in 2007, and they're at levels that we have not seen since World War II. So, ideally being able to address them sooner than this cliff that we might roll off into the future in a couple of decades, is definitely something that's been talked about as well. It's bold. It's certainly not going to come without pain and dislocation. We have things that we pay for that are quite expensive. The entitlement programs, none the least of which. So we'll see how much medicine or surgery that's not ideal. Right? Nobody likes taking medicine. Nobody likes to go in for surgery, but you do those things because the outcome on the other side is viewed to be more positive than the situation that you're in right now. So I'm not here to prognosticate or to have an opinion politically one way or another. These are just observations that we have seen and trying to disseminate some of the potential reasons behind them. One thing's for sure, these plans are being enacted by human beings, and so mistakes will be made, emotions will run high, and we'll see, it won't be perfect. But if we all want the same kinds of outcomes, which lead to prosperity, then hopefully we will see some positivity on the other side. So, what does this mean for you? If you are nervous about what you're seeing in the markets and your portfolios, then congratulations, you are normal. Concern is normal. Panic is not something that obviously we generally recommend. Of course, if you're out there in the workforce and still saving for your long-term retirement, these kinds of dislocations, while they are nerve-wracking, especially when you're hearing the news headlines talk about stocks being crushed, or recession fears, or corrections or bear markets, or any of those kinds of things, it obviously elicits an emotional reaction. We always hear the same phrase: "This time it's different," and yes, this time it is different, but every time has been different. From Black Monday to the dot-com bubble to the Great Recession and financial crisis, and even the pandemic, the things that push the market down are always going to be different. The triggers are going to be different. But what do we know? We know that obviously long term, everybody wants the same thing. People wake up for work like you and I do. They work diligently to receive the pay that they do, so that they can purchase goods and services for their life and their family. And that's not going to stop, even though we have some volatility here. So if you wanted to look at the bright side, this does create some buying opportunities. So to be a bit contrarian, these kinds of volatile periods, if you have what they call dry powder, or the ability to invest more, that definitely is something that we have seen be a positive over time. What haven't we seen, be a positive? Trying to catch the falling knife of market volatility. When you have a week like we saw 2 weeks ago, where the market is down 10%, and then a week like last week where it's back up over 7%, trying to trade around that is very difficult. The difference between market and returns that we see from folks who have investment managers like us versus investor returns from people who are doing it themselves themselves are different. Investor returns are generally lower than market returns by several percent. And it's because of the behavioral finance and the emotions that go along with investing. Nobody sells at the top and nobody buys at the bottom. Generally, you're selling, somewhere along the way, along the path to the bottom, and then most of the time people are buying back in at a point higher than when they sold out, and so your returns end up being reduced, as a result of that. So our emotions and investing do not go hand in hand very well. So we focus on the long term. The tortoise wins the race. We know that. Having the right goals, having the right allocation in your portfolio, being diversified, having folks like Advanced Capital and our investment committee on your team looking out for you and making sure that we are making the moves in your portfolio appropriately, being proactive and not reactive inside of these portfolios and letting time do the work. That's the recipe for success. Trying to avoid the rhetoric out there and the media and the talking heads and who they're even talking to, that's the most difficult part. Having the ability to resist the knee-jerk reaction of what's going on out there is the most difficult part. Managing investments is easier than managing emotions. So keep on the right path. I'm always here certainly to make sure that we are meeting your objectives and time horizons within your portfolio. Having this emotional experience associated with investing is again very normal, but knowing that you have someone on your side here that's looking out for you is also a benefit to you as well. And I'm happy to chat with you about that. Keep putting in for your retirement, as far as if you're in a 401k plan or something like that, because you're buying low, which will benefit you over time. So one last thought. We know that our debts and deficits, are a problem. For those of you who are looking out for the next generation, if you have children and you care, we should definitely be aware of this problem. We've seen surveys that show that young people today, just have less confidence in their future than, folks who came before them. And that's not good. We want there to be optimism out there. We want there to be this, idea of a brighter future. And so, when we can hopefully get some of our financial house in order from a government standpoint, that will benefit all of us. So don't think that your objective is changing just because of the market. Don't think there's anything wrong in your portfolios or the investments that you own. We're just going through a volatile period here, and this too shall pass, as it always has. If you want to reach out to me and have a conversation, I'd be more than happy. There should be a link in this email that you received that will allow you to book right on my calendar with me. And in the meantime, keep the faith. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Bye.